Hey everyone, Brett Maker here from Boss Dynamics. I'm back with another video that's a bit of an add-on to the former video we did. I'm going to go through the takeoff a little bit. I noticed some mistakes I did, and I'm also going to talk a little bit more about the theory behind the takeoff and how you do it. We're also going to try and go for the landing, and I'm going to say beforehand that this is probably not going to be my prettiest landing. First off, I'm not actually a real pilot, so I make mistakes, and I'm also used to flying in VR, but for this one I use my track IR instead. So don't expect the best landing, but I will try to explain at least how you are supposed to do it, and then when the mod is released you can go practice it for yourself. But first off, let's bring up our kneeboard, because I've imported the checklist I talked about in the last video. So here we are, kneeboard. You just flip the pages to the right a little bit until you get to this one. And here you can see checklist. This is actually from a real SK60 that's been used in service. And this checklist contains everything you do prior to a flight and also after a flight. Of course, since this is a simulation and not the real world, we are not going to do all the things. We can't do an external walk around, for example, but I thought it would be fun to have it in here nonetheless. So you can see here's what you do on the walk around before you start the engines. Next page you can see how you start the engines before you taxi, while you taxi, all of this. There are stuff in here that will be relevant for your experience in DCS, and of course you can also simulate the parts that aren't relevant. That depends on what level of immersion you want to achieve. Some things that we are not going to worry about that much today is the temperatures of oils and stuff. They should be correct, but we are not going to worry about them today. This is the page we're going to be looking at. How do you do a takeoff in the SK60? Well, you can see it here. The first thing we do is we make sure the ejection seat is armed, and that function isn't actually implemented yet, but you look at this little arm here, make sure it's in the up position, and it is. That means it's armed. We can eject seats if we need to. The navigation equipment, check it if you have it. We have the navigation equipment, the GPS is on, the HSI is working, and so on. It's all there. The transponder, not implemented yet, but it's down here. Check that one. We will see if we were going to implement that or not, but this is the transponder. The landing lights are supposed to be on. If you remember, that's the switch down here. We have it in taxi mode currently, so we flip it forward instead and put it in the landing position. And you can see that now we have two lights shining from the front here. That means we are in the landing light configuration. If we just flip them back once again, you can see we have one light. That means taxi. So we take it forward again, 2 steps to be in the landing light configuration. We check the altitude and the heading. No, wait, the nose wheel is supposed to be centered, and I spawned here on the runway, so it's going to be centered, but make sure it's centered before you start. Check your altitude and heading. We have already adjusted the altitude, but we're going to adjust the heading. And in the current mode, you can see it's green. That means it's paired to the GPS unit. So it's going to point at whatever waypoint you have selected in here. Currently we have no waypoint, so it just points in whatever direction. But to change that, you can press this little button down here where it says CDI. And it's going to go from GPS to V-lock. That means you can edit this by rotating this little dial here. So we are going to rotate that until it points straight up. That means we know the direction of the runway we are at currently. Let me just check what runway that is. We can see that it's runway 04. So if we rotate this little one, that doesn't seem to be correct, or maybe it is. Yeah, almost. Not entirely. We're not going to worry about that now. We're just going to point it straight ahead. When that's done, let's see, where are we? Altitude heading. They checked. If error says degrees, let's not worry about that. The MEK indication, that's these ones. We're not going to worry about those either at the moment. They are not implemented. We are ready to take off. We apply brakes and we hold them. Here we have some oil temperatures that we are supposed to be checking. We are not going to check them right now, but we are going to take the throttle up to 92% RPM. So let's take the throttle up. 90. I have some detents, so it's difficult to put them at exactly 92, but 91.5, 90.67, that's going to be good enough. Then after we release the brakes, we roll a little bit and then we apply max power. Something that doesn't say here is that when we reach about 80 knots, we are going to lift the nose slightly. That's going to let the aircraft take off by itself when it reaches 125 knots. If we go too fast, the wheels are going to blow. It's not implemented at the moment, but that's how it works in real life. Let's reduce throttle a little bit so we don't roll. Actually, let's take it down and talk this through first. We're also going to put the flaps in the takeoff position. So the flap handle is down here. It's not animated at the moment, but you can also look at the flaps and take it down one step. You see it goes down. You can take it down one more step and it goes to full length, but we want it in the middle. There we go. Alright, we are ready to do a takeoff. We're going to take off and climb and fly straight ahead and then turn around and do a landing. So throttle up, 92%. Almost at least. Release brakes now. And full power. And when we reach 80 knots, we're going to take the nose up. And the plane will take off by itself. There we are up. And gear up. Flaps in. And we are airborne. We are flying in the SK60. In case you wonder what environment this is the channel map. I like flying the SK60 here because the channel environment reminds quite a lot about the Swedish environment, especially here in Linköping where the flight school is located. So we're going to head out for a bit and bring up our kneeboard again and look at the landing procedure. So, as you can see, the landing, thrust spoiler, that's not something we are going to use today, so we're going to ignore that, but we're going to reduce the speed to below 250 knots when we go in for a landing. 250 knots, you can see by the little red and white bar down here. That's the speed at which we can extend our landing gear. So we make sure it's extended. When it's extended, these lights are going to be shining. That means the landing gear is out and that it's locked. When they are, we make sure the air brakes are retracted. And the air brakes indicator is this little gauge down here. If I extend the air brakes, you're going to see it moves out. And then it can move in. And these works in the way that you can press the air brake button and release it, and you can extend it just a little bit, or retract them just a little bit, or all the way. So make sure they are retracted before you go in for a landing. We're going to turn around here because we are about to leave the map, as it seems. We're going to make a brake over the airfield and try to reach 160 knots on the downwind leg. Then we're going to turn to final. We're going to reduce altitude. We're going to set our flaps to the landing positions. And we're going to reduce the indicated speed to 135 knots when we approach the final. At short final, at threshold, we're going to reduce the speed to 115 knots. And that's also the speed we're going to be aiming for when we do our touchdown. At touchdown, we're going to try and keep the nose up. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull that off today, but that's what we're aiming for anyway. To let the aircraft use its aerodynamic capabilities to reduce the speed until we can use the brakes. When the nose wheel hits the ground, we will apply the brakes carefully to come to a full stop. So yeah, that's how you do the landing, takeoff and the landing with the SK60. Now I can see we have the airfield over here, so I'm going to take the kneeboard away and attempt to do a good landing. Let's line up with the runway first so we can do an overhead pass. While we do that, we can take a look at this beautiful British, but very Swedish looking scenery that we have around us. Alright, there's the airfield, let's turn in. We're going to be needing a lot of work with the trim during this landing, because you need to use the trim constantly at different speeds to keep it stable. Okay, let's reduce speed with throttle in idle. Use an air brake. Air brake in, and we reach 215 knots. So we're going to take the gear down now and do our overhead brake to the right. And we'll keep reducing speed. Let's put up some throttle to not lose too much speed. It's a bit slow here on the downwind. I'll try and see if I can find the airfield. There it is. Okay, we're a little bit slow, but that's okay. We are on downwind. And we keep reducing the speed. Let's go out a little bit more. And take flaps into takeoff position. First stage flaps. And let's turn base. Full flaps. Work with the throttle to don't lose, so we don't lose too much speed. 110 knots, that's a bit slow. We want to be at 115. So we're going to work with the throttle to maintain 115 knots. Now, like I said, I'm not used to doing this when I'm not in VR, so please don't hate me too much that I do a rough landing. But I will do my best. There we are, let's reduce the altitude. And we are on final. Let's check the speed, it's going up when we're not turning. Work with the trim, work with the throttle. And we're going down. Throttle off, and there we go. Oh, that's a bit rough. But we are down, nose up. Let's try and keep it up. Not too much though, we don't want to scrape the tail in the ground. Use some air brakes, because this is a short runway. Start working with the brakes. Yeah, that was not a very good landing roll done by me. Like I said, it's difficult for me when you're not using VR, and I also need to practice. This is kind of a short runway also, so in reality you might use the dragkraftbroms, as it's called in Swedish. I'm going to show you right now where it's located. It's a little switch that's down here. Let's see if I can look at it. There it is. If you flip that switch, these little flaps just behind the exhaust is going to extend and give you some extra drag to stop quicker. It's not a thrust reverser as in the Viggen, but it helps you brake more effectively. So yeah, that's how you do takeoff and landing in the SK60. In the next video, we are probably going to show you a bit how to use the rockets. That's going to be a fun one. I'm going to show you how you mount the gun sight up here on the dashboard, how you load the rockets, how you use the rockets, and how you fire the rockets. That's always a fun one. But that's it for now. See you in the next one.